an eco-ambassador, a surfer,
a filmmaker,
and a survivalist. It's my dream to turn it green.
You're probably wondering why I'm wearing a fluorescent green hat. Let me explain. I live in an off-the-grid grass shack in Hawaii with my incredibly cool parents that we built by hand since I was a little mini Tarzan. My mom's a world-renowned yoga teacher, and my dad's a pioneer in green living. I've now taken the torch of sustainability in my Allison's Adventures inspirational film series for kids, where everything from my bikinis to my surfboards are made out of recycled plastic bottles, coffee cups, and plant-based resin. Most recently, I completed one of the most challenging experiences of my life in an extreme Discovery Channel survival show. I couldn't believe the massive amounts of plastic bottles piled high on these seemingly pristine islands. Which is why I want to tell you about Reprieve and how excited I am to be part of their Turn It Green campaign. Reprieve is a brand that takes plastic bottles and recycles them into fiber that makes some of the most popular brands in the world. Which brings me back to my hat. That hat is made out of 6 recycled plastic bottles. And I want to jump in and inspire others to turn it green. Nature is my playground as well as my home, and we can't have it looking like this. So help me spread the word.
Hey, Mom!
Yes?
We really need to turn it green. Hey, Papa.
Yes.
We need to turn it green. That looks good on you.
You can start simple, things within your own home, like composting, hanging your clothes to dry, or planting a garden.
Aloe vera!
It might take a bit extra work, but it's well worth it.
Wow! Gee whiz, thanks!
Oh, that's gonna be your spoon. Hold that. Papaya straws.
I hope we continue to emerge into a greener world. Let's get plastic bottles out of the ocean and into Reprieve products. So please help me spread the message to everyone on Earth and Sea. And hopefully this pretty cool planet will be around for countless future generations to enjoy. Turn it green!
Green, green, it's green they say, on the far side of the hill, da 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 da. Green, green, I'm going away to where the grass is greener still. Ha ha.
浪，是你在吗？
去，去，嗨，丽丽，好久不见。
你到哪去啦？你是不是感冒了呀？
没有，我出了趟远门，时差还没倒过来呢。你还好吗？看来你有什么烦心事儿。
我老是找不到我做衣服的布料。
哦，我知道了，你有全新的设计理念，但是眼前的材料却没有办法让你去实现它，对不对？
那你有什么办法帮我吗？
当然，谁让我们是好朋友呢？
太好了，那你怎么帮我？怎么帮我呀？
过来，我会穿越时空，穿越时空，穿越时空，穿越时空啊！你不信，我穿越给你看，穿，嘿，来，
好了，你到底怎么帮我？怎么帮我呀？
我帮不了你，但是我能带你穿越时空，去到50年后，那里的人可以帮你。
真的？
当然是真的，跟我来。哇！丽丽，准备好了吗？我们出发吧！坐稳喽！丽丽，这就是我们要来的地方。
浪，你去哪儿了？
嘿，我在这儿。我们走吧，去找能帮助到你的人。
Hello, who are you?
你好，我叫丽丽，我来自60年代。
Wow, that's a time where we have started our business in China. So, what are you looking for and how can I help you?
我是一个年轻的设计师，我想设计一些更时尚的衣服，可是在我们那个年代，我找不到适合的材料。
I see. So, let me introduce our latest innovations to you. And we will show you the production of man-made fibers. That's a material fashion designer use today. So, come on. Lily, in your time you might have used mainly natural fibers. Today, more than 60% of the worldwide textile production is man-made fibers. And this is our high-end solution for the production of man-made fibers. You can see the polycondensation and our wings winding system. Here you can see the final product.
哇，这正是我想找的材料。
So together we can turn your dreams into reality.
丽丽，实现你的愿望了吧？ 现在可以回到我们那个年代去了吗？
我不想回去了，因为在这里我找到了实现我梦想的技术和材料，还有我交到了很多好朋友，所以我想和他们一起去翻开纺织业的新篇章。我是莉莉，我来自60年代。
Sorry, what? Hello. Ah, sorry. She has to start. You have to start.
For my latest adventure, I set off to Indonesia, a land steeped in myth, magic, superstition, and the supernatural. And of course, some of the best waves in the world. Welcome to Allison's Adventures Indonesia! I teamed up with the guys from Mojo Surf, and we set off across Indonesia to save the world.
We're going to clean the beach!
On each island, we stayed at Mojo Surf camps. And even though the waves were incredible, I opted for a different kind of ride. We're cleaning the beach, bersih bersih pantai. We're cleaning the beach, bersih bersih pantai. My song Bersih Bersih Pantai, Clean the Beach, was quite a hit, and drew the entire village out for the first ever beach cleanup.
Bersih pantai.
Bersih bersih pantai. Come on.
It was pretty darn awesome to see the village come together and inspire the future generations.
Bersih bersih pantai.
And then they put me to work.
I just helped the fishermen bring the boat in after a night of lobster fishing.
Indonesia has some of the most vibrant marine life in the world.
Lots of fishies!
That is plagued by plastic pollution.
There's manta rays here and lots of trash.
Plastic is killing our underwater world. And if the oceans die, we die. We can't be lazy about this issue. We must launch into a new wave of caring about our planet. And I'm grateful to Mojo Surf for creating surf camps across Indonesia where you can team up with local families and help take a stand against plastic pollution in the ocean.
Our vision is our destiny, aiming high for the sky,
Going far,
staying green,
helping people,
building dreams. We're closer than you think.
Indorama,
Staying innovating, constantly creating,
we live together.
and how it shows.
Indorama
Is the
separation. Art and precision in everything we weave into creation. Vision is the art of seeing the invisible. Planning for a cleaner future. Turning yesterday's waste into tomorrow's dreams. Protecting man and the environment. What is a life worth? Conserving and harnessing energy and power and making it work for you. Giving is the new living. Investing in our people and the future. Closer than you think. Indorama Ventures, ensuring a better and brighter tomorrow.
One company.
Global, united, a family.
Moving the world
in new directions
through innovation and quality.
Closer than you think.
Our vision is our destiny, aiming high for the sky. Indorama, look around, we're closer than you think.
Indorama Ventures, closer than you think.
Our vision is our destiny, aiming high for the sky.
Going far,
staying green,
helping people,
building dreams. We're closer than you think.
Indorama,
sustaining, innovating, constantly creating.
We live together,
and how it shows.
Indorama
is the one for you. Let's go! Responsible in every venture,
careful staff
and customer. Lead the way, one global team.
Forging ahead in every single space. Indorama,
look around.
We're closer than you think.
What if there were an even better way to clean the oceans? For the past 2 years, we've been working on something that will make that possible. What we're about to show you looks like nothing you've seen before, and I'm so glad we can finally share it with you here tonight. But before we get to the answer, let's go back and ask ourselves why it is so important that we succeed in ridding the oceans of plastic. So there are 5 areas in the world where ocean currents concentrate the plastic, and the largest one of these accumulations is the infamous Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which is the one halfway between Hawaii and California. And here's a graph showing the concentration of plastic in that Great Pacific Garbage Patch, going from, say, the 1950s, 1960s on the left, all the way to very recently. And I think this is the one image that shows what it's all about. It's getting worse, fast. And that's actually not the only thing we can see from this graph. We also see that the plastic is accumulating. It stays there. And that is a very important observation, because that means that really the only way to make that line go down again is to actually go out there and clean it up. It simply will not go away by itself. It's persistent. And to illustrate this persistency, I brought along a few examples of the 1.5 million pieces that we took out of the ocean last year. So let's start with this one. So this may look like a random piece of plastic to you, but it's actually the backside of a mini Game Boy. And if you look closely in it, you can see that it reads Nintendo 1995. So this one piece of plastic is basically as old as I am. And so here's a photo of me back in 95. I clearly do not look like this anymore. At least I hope it's clear. But after 2 decades, this piece of plastic remains relatively unchanged. Now, let's go back even further in time to 1989. You may remember it as the year that the Berlin Wall fell, but that actually wasn't the only thing that happened that year. No, it was also the year that somewhere in Japan, this hard hat was made. Now, and don't forget, this is stuff that we took out of the ocean last year, so it's pretty recent stuff. And, well, can it get even older? What we see here is a crate which presumably was used to hold soft drink bottles. And if you look at the date on it, you can see that it reads 1977. So this thing is 40 years old. 40 years. You know, 1977 was the year Elvis Presley left the building for good, presumably. And 1977 was also the year, for my fellow nerds, the year that Jobs and Woz presented the original Apple II at the West Coast Computer Fair. And then, when you look at these smaller species, the so-called microplastics, we estimate that these may have been large objects when they entered the ocean, say in the 50s or 60s. But due to sunlight, plastic becomes more brittle as the decades pass. And then it starts to break up into these small but very dangerous pieces. Dangerous because the contents of this dish are the actual stomach contents of a single sea turtle that was found dead in Uruguay last year. So not only does the plastic stay in the ocean, but it also becomes more harmful over time. And to be honest, this is what scares me most, because right now, according to our latest data from all these expeditions that we did, only about 3% of the plastic are these small pieces, but most of it is still locked up floating around in these large objects. Still, because of course what will happen over the next few decades, that all these large objects will start breaking down into these small and dangerous microplastics as well, increasing the amount of microplastics dozens of times, unless we clean it up. We must defuse this ticking time bomb. And that has been my mission ever since I founded the Ocean Cleanup 4 years ago. A lot has happened in those 4 years. It all began with one simple idea. Instead of going after the plastic, we let the plastic come to us, saving time, energy, and cost. By using the natural ocean currents to our advantage, we can let the ocean clean itself. I envisioned a network of extremely long floating screens which would first concentrate the plastic so that we could then extract it, store it, before we would then ship it to land for recycling. And since the idea was to use a closed screen instead of nets, we could avoid the bycatch of sea life. And we then showed that with a single 100-kilometer screen, we would be able to clean up about 42% of this Great Pacific Garbage Patch in just 10 years' time. But to turn this dream into reality, we first needed some funding. So we did this little crowdfunding campaign. Is anyone here who supported that? Well, but seriously, guys, if you hadn't had the guts to support us at such an early stage, the Ocean Cleanup simply wouldn't exist. And I'll be forever grateful for that. So thank you. Thank you very much. But how do you go about engineering something that is this new and this uncertain? What we set out to do wasn't to simply improve upon an existing machine. No, we set out to develop an entirely new category of machine. And because there are so many unknowns, you cannot expect that the machine you designed to work exactly the way you wanted to the first time around. You have to do it iteratively. So what you do is that you test, you research, you test, you sometimes fail, and then you learn and you repeat until you make it work. And that's what we did. So first, we really had to understand the problem. So to do that, we organized a series of reconnaissance missions. Some of these were aimed at determining until what depth the ocean has to be cleaned, which turned out to be just a few meters. And then we had to find out how much plastic is out there to clean up. So we organized the largest ocean research expedition ever, crossing the Great Pacific Garbage Patch with 30 vessels at the same time to produce the first high-resolution map of the plastic pollution. And when crews observed that most of the plastic is actually really big stuff, we decided to cross the area again, but this time with an airplane. Using the world's most advanced sensors, we scanned the ocean surface for objects up to 10 meters in size, and this was actually the first time anyone conducted an aerial survey of an ocean garbage patch. And in parallel, we conducted hundreds and hundreds of scale model experiments, gradually improving the concept test by test. And this was then followed by our first ocean prototype, which we successfully deployed on the North Sea last year. And while conducting these tests, we of course faced hurdles. That's what iterative engineering is all about. It's why we do these tests in the first place. And it was the complexity of anchoring the system to the seabed, which was the biggest hurdle of them all. Solving this hurdle required a breakthrough. And it is this breakthrough that we are presenting to you today. Now, who would like to see what we came up with? Yes? All right. So at the Ocean Cleanup, our core principle has always been that we work with nature, that we use the natural ocean currents to our advantage. Already during my very first presentation back in 2012, I asked the audience, why go after the plastic if the plastic can come to you? But now, we're taking this idea one step further, saying, well, to catch the plastic, act like the plastic. Okay, let me explain. It will make sense in a few minutes. So, because we are completely reliant on the ocean currents, it's really important that we understand them in great detail, not just at the surface, but also underwater, from surface to seabed. So of course we've been modeling these ocean currents, and while we were doing this, we hit upon something which would have a profound impact on the design. Let's have a look at this graph here. What we see here is the relation between the speed of the current and the depth of the ocean. So what we see here is at the surface, the current is relatively quick. So we get a current speed of about 17, 18 centimeters per second. And then if we go only a few hundred meters deeper, we already get to, say, a speed of 3, 4 centimeters per second. So, a huge difference. So simply said, the water moves fast at the surface, moves slow the deeper you go. And then we were like, wait a minute. What if, instead of fixing the system to the seabed, we fix it here, in this deeper water layer? We imagined suspending a large object in this deeper water layer, effectively slowing down the system. Of course, we wouldn't be able to slow down the system 100% this way. It would start to drift. But that's entirely okay, because as long as the system moves slower than the plastic, as long as there is a difference in speed between the cleanup system and the plastic, we will collect plastic. Now just think for a moment about what that would mean. It would mean that we wouldn't need to go down to 4.5 kilometers of depth, which is, I can tell you, it's pretty deep, so we don't want to go there. Furthermore, it would mean that we wouldn't need to understand how the seabed composition is, so whether it's rock, whether it's clay, whether it's sand, it would no longer matter. And it would mean that the system isn't fixed in one direction, but free to rotate and orient itself exactly in the direction the plastic is coming from. So in other words, it wouldn't only be more cost-effective because that installation to put it there is easier, but it would also be more efficient. And who would like to see this in action? That's multiple people, that's good. So what you see here is a basin that we filled with water. And what we've done here is we've basically recreated the conditions as you would find them in the ocean. So we have fast current at the surface and a slow current at depth. And actually you can see that right here. We have this stick with the lines attached to it. You can see the lines are taut at the surface, so fast current here, slow current at depth. And now I would like to ask Bruno, one of our best scientists of the team, to, yes, Bruno, to deploy a scale model of one such cleanup system. So we see an anchor here, we see a barrier at the surface, anchor at depth, connected to each other, and you see it starts to drift. But then when we release some plastic, let's see what happens. So we see the cleanup system moves, but the plastic moves too, but moves faster than the cleanup system. So you see the plastic coming closer to the system, moving faster, hitting the barrier, moving towards the barrier, in the center of the barrier, hitting the barrier, moving towards the center, and you can see, it's catching the plastic. Interestingly, now that the cleanup system drifts, the survivability of the system has also greatly improved. Now, just think about what would happen if such a system would get hit by a storm, for example. Now, originally, when the system was still fixed to the seabed, it had to withstand all the force of the ocean pushing against it. But now that the cleanup system drifts, we only have to absorb a fraction of that force. Compare it to when you're outside and you kick a rock. Whether that rock flies away or is fixed in the ground, your toes will understand the difference. Now, and what's more, actually, the relationship between the speed of the water and the force it exerts on the system, that's not a linear relationship. It's a quadratic one. And that is actually a very important notion, because that means that if we were to slow down the system just a bit, say by 1/5 of the original speed, the resulting force on the system will not be 1/5, but actually 1/25 of what it was before. And just to illustrate this, I brought along a few mooring lines, as I always do. So what we see here is a mooring line. Let's see if I can lift that. So it's actually pretty heavy. So this is actually the sort of the normal type of mooring line you would use to actually install a fixed cleanup system. So this is what would be required to withstand the force on a fixed system. And all right, didn't collapse. That's good. And now, thanks to this reduction in speed, we can actually now get away with just using this. So we are very confident that the system will be able to survive anything the ocean can throw at it. Now, and I think the elegance of this design is that we managed to make it even simpler. It's so simple. It's just one barrier, one anchor, two lines connecting them, and a central passive collection point to buffer the plastic. That's it. And for me, from an engineering perspective, it's just beautiful. And because the ocean currents aren't constantly coming from one direction, you want the system to be able to move freely and rotate in the direction the plastic is coming from. And to make this possible, for this reason, we have now modified the ocean cleanup from being one massive system into a fleet of many smaller systems. And this is actually very important, because that means, not just because it will be more efficient, but it will also become easier to fund. Because even though the cleanup is now significantly less expensive, it's still likely to cost in the order of several $100 million. And you can imagine that raising that amount of capital in one go is pretty hard. So thanks to this modularity, instead of requiring the full funding upfront, we can now gradually scale up, system by system by system, which of course massively increases the financial viability. And this is how we'll rid the oceans of plastic. So you can imagine that when we discovered all this, we felt pretty good about ourselves. However, there is actually one more thing. Yeah. Because we talked about how the cleanup systems drift, but the question was, well, where do they drift towards? Well, to answer this question, we built this computer model. And what we see here are basically 50 white shapes, and each white shape represents one cleanup system, and then all these small blue dots, that's plastic. And then when we start to play this, you can see that indeed these cleanup system moves around, the plastic wiggles around as well, and what you'll notice is that areas start to form where there's more plastic. So these bluer areas and areas where there's less plastic. So these darker areas. And then if you look closely, what you may be able to spot is that what you see is that there, where there is a lot of plastic, you also see a lot of cleanup systems. And that is, of course, because the forces moving the plastic around are the same forces that move these cleanup systems around. So in other words, and so the waves, the winds and currents we're talking about, right? So in other words, there where the plastic goes, these cleanup systems automatically drift to as well. And in a way, it's like a plastic magnet. And because of this plastic magnet effect, it now turns out that the concentration of plastic in front of these cleanup systems is actually 5 to 10 times higher than what they would see if they would just be fixed in a single location. And that is what I meant when I said acting like the plastic. Now, and actually the funny thing is that it's all pretty counterintuitive, because what you would expect is that the more you slow down the system, the more plastic you would collect, right? But actually, the opposite is the case. Because the less you slow down, the more you act like the plastic, the more these cleanup systems will gravitate towards those high density zones and therefore catch more plastic. Well, how much more plastic, I hear you thinking. We'll get to that. So what we see here is a map of how the Great Pacific Garbage Patch will look like in 2030 if we don't clean up. Now this is pretty bad, okay? We see that, in an area the size of California, we already get to concentrations that are, say, 3-4 times higher than what it is today. And then what would the garbage patch look like if our plan succeeds? Well, this is the result. Dramatic difference. And now it turns out that instead of being able to clean up 42% of the patch in 10 years' time, we can now actually clean up 50% of the patch in just 5 years' time. 5 years. Now, and remember this graph that I showed you at the beginning? Well, of course, we also calculated what's going to happen if our plan succeeds. And let's have a look at the results there. It's pretty incredible. So, well. And the thing is that 4 years ago, when I founded the Ocean Cleanup, everyone told me that there was no way to clean up what's already out there, and the only thing you could do is avoid making it worse. But to me, that was just such an uninspiring message. Don't we all want a future that is better than the present? And now we are able to show with data that we can actually make things better again. And we can do this, and we must do this, and we will do this. So, what's next? Now, our promise was to start the cleanup of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch by the end of 2020. But unfortunately, we cannot keep this promise. Well, you can imagine that with such a dramatic change in design, this will also have some repercussions on the planning, right? So instead, we are here to announce that we will be launching our first actual cleanup system to be deployed in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, the one that will start the ocean cleanup within the next 12 months. Thank you. So as you know by now, at the Ocean Cleanup, we're pretty good at making computer renderings. But soon, all of this can actually become reality. And that reality is closer than you might think. At this very moment, the first parts of the system are already in production, including this one, the first element of the floating pipe of the barrier, which is being made in California right now. But I would say that it is even closer than you might think. Do you get it? Maybe even as close as behind this screen? So that's an anchor. Yeah, there's so much more I could share with you today, but I think I'll have to leave that for next time. So thank you, and have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.